Gareth, today we're continuing our journey around some of the conundra we have in being really good in the virtual context when we're communicating. Virtual being increasingly important as far as our meeting management is concerned, shall we say, as we continue to run our lives. There's a phrase that I was taught a long time ago, which really resonates with me, which is you cannot not communicate. If you just ponder on that phrase just for a second. What's really interesting about communication, of course, is it's made up of far more than just the words that you're using. The words, the tone, the body language, for example, all form part of that communication. Now, if you think about the context in virtual, you're very often just head and shoulders, as we are now. There's a lot of the body language bit that's invisible directly to the people to whom you're speaking. And if you combine that with the fact that very often people don't think about their setup and how they're being viewed, what's your experience of getting the best out of your body language, given it's such an important component of that communication that we talked about?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It is, one of those things that's leveled at virtual. You haven't got your body language, and therefore there's a lack of interaction, communication. Those types of critiques. It's always worth reflecting, by the way, that even in physical meetings, people are often sitting down, and you can only see the top half of their body as well. So I think there's also, let's compare and contrast that, that aspect of it as well. There's things that you can do in the physical environment to really improve your use of your body language. But let's focus on virtual. I think first things first, there's one big thing that we need to be aware about, and that's cameras on. I think people are increasingly more comfortable with their cameras on, but if you roll the tape back a few years, at the start of lockdowns and even before that, there was, I think, a reluctance for people to have a camera on. And if you think about that, if your camera's not on, you're just killing your body language. So you are automatically just reducing how you communicate with your fellow colleagues or customers or whoever else is in the meeting. So, cameras on. And I do remember having a few jokes with people, which was, would you go to a customer and physically then go and hide in a cupboard? No. So, cameras on, come on. There is also a lot about your background, and more about that later. Now, let's assume cameras are on. There's also something about, well, how do you use your body language effectively? And I guess there's just a couple of key things. Well, firstly, if you're the person running the meeting, really encourage people to stand up. And there's a really important reason for that, which is, we're not actually made to sit, we're made to move, we're made to stand. If you are, standing up, you're much more likely to have the words you say, the tonality, and your body language congruent with each other. And therefore your body language is much more likely to be effective. So stand up, big thing. Look, second thing, obviously, your face, you cannot not communicate. So just making sure that you're looking at your audience and having an external webcam, right above the Zoom call or Teams call or WebEx or whatever platform you're using, just gives you that flexibility. So you're not staring at your audience that way, and therefore they can see you. And remember, how your facial expressions come across, really important. So your face, really important thing. And of course, lighting and all that type of stuff is important to think about there as well. And I think, one of the third things, which was really crucial, of course, is these things, your hands. It's a crucial way to get your messages across, but yet too often, if I'm doing that, I'm moving my hands, but you cannot see them. And that's something that often a lot of people are not aware about. So, raise your hands, make sure that they're in picture so that you can get those key messages across. Now, if somebody came into the room and looked at me now, they might think, well, that guy's a bit weird. He's raising his hands, but it's been impactful in the virtual meeting that really matters, not what somebody thinks when they're watching me. So if you want to be impactful, think about your camera, make sure it's on, think about its positioning, looking at the audience, first thing. Secondly, your facial expressions, really critical. And thirdly, the use of your hands. Make sure they're visible and you're using them in an effective way.
Okay, great tips, Gareth. And I suppose the thing to remember, to leave people with as a memory here, is you can't not communicate. So by choosing not to use your hands and your lighting and you are taking away a big chunk of the possibility to communicate in the way that you want to do. And in effect, you're not communicating appropriately because you're not able to get that message across if you don't do it. So totally. Your body language into play is what I'm hearing, but very consciously.
Totally.
Thank you, Gareth.